Hi, I'm Dana, and I went to another meeting this morning. I've been having lots of random meetings with random people to do life admin stuff I need to do essentially. I'm not going to bore you with it all. But one thing keeps coming up because it's the types of meetings where you have to sort of disclose everything about yourself ever. So one of the things that always comes up, of course, is any disabilities or medical conditions. And that's where I have to tell them I'm autistic, and I'm also looking to get, at some point, hopefully, a diagnosis of OCD and or ADHD. They're both things I believe I have symptoms of, and I would like to know if I have them or not. And every single one has been like, oh, so you want an ADHD and OCD diagnosis, okay? And I'm like, no, I don't want it. You see where this video title and everything's coming from now, because it was the same when I went for my autism diagnosis. And it's difficult because you do have to like push and be like, I want to go and be diagnosed with autism. I want an autism diagnosis. I would like to be diagnosed, please. You know, you have to keep asking for it. And, you know, there's a whole rhetoric. There's a whole discussion online as well of people who want these diagnoses of ADHD and autism and OCD and BPD and bipolar and whatever else people can pull out of their asses that are genuine conditions people are dealing with, and trying to find out if they have them or not. But it's this thing of saying that you want that diagnosis. And for me, when I went for my autism diagnosis, when I ask if I can be assessed for ADHD or OCD, it's not because I want those things. It's not because I want to be ADHD. It's not because I want OCD. It's because I want to know what I am. I want to know what's going on with my brain. And for me, finding out I was autistic was a gigantic help. You know, in so many ways, that allowed me to unmask. It allowed me to like understand, oh, I don't have weird little emotional breakdowns. I have meltdowns. You know, I'm not being childish or immature or abusive. If I go silent during a conflict, it's because I go non-verbal and have shutdowns. It explained lots and lots and lots of things for me. And the thing with that is when you start unlocking doors and answering questions, you quite often find more doors and more questions. And I'm like, well, if the last door that I opened allowed me to get all of this stuff that I now understand about myself, the locked door over there might have even more that'll help me understand myself so that I can cope better with things, so that I can develop coping mechanisms, so that I can be a happier person, so that I can understand what my needs are. I'm not saying that I want these diagnoses in order to collect labels, in order to be able to say that I have OCD. You know, I want them so I know what's going on with myself, so I know what I can work with. I really struggle to stay organised and on top of things. I really struggle with time management. I have lots and lots of things that don't really relate that much to autism that are definitely going on with me. And they're things that may relate to being ADHD. So if I go and get assessed for ADHD and find out I have ADHD, I can then tackle those issues that I have and those symptoms and those whatever else is with the knowledge of, oh, well, I have ADHD, so I can look for, like, how do ADHD people deal with this and how do ADHD brains do this? I can't do that if I don't know that I'm ADHD. And on the other hand of that, if I go for the assessment and they're like, no, you don't have ADHD, I can be like, okay, so what is it? What else is going on? Is it this? Is it that? You know, I can start looking for what the key is to unlock the door. If the key is an ADHD, there's going to be another key. There's going to be something. But a lot of people, especially online, aren't seeing it like that. They're very much seeing it as like, you just want to collect these labels and be able to put them in your bio. And I couldn't give a shit about putting it in my bio. If I at some point manage to get diagnosed with OCD, it's going to be so I can work on my OCD and not feel fucking anxious all the time and have horrible intrusive thoughts. Like the other day while I was filming a video, which will be up, I suggested that, I don't know how to phrase this to not kick it off again. Basically, there was a hypothetical imagined situation where one of my loved ones died. And because of the way that I phrased it in that video, my mind was immediately like, you've just put that out into the universe and now it's going to happen. You've actually just confirmed that someone you love is going to die. So now you need to cross your fingers and touch some wood and do other things that are lucky. You know, I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying that that is OCD. What I am saying is I've noticed this thing that I think may be a symptom of OCD, and I'd really like to know whether it is or not. Because if it isn't, I need to find out what the fuck it is so that I can actually tackle it and work on it and do something with it. But I think chances are, as someone who knows my brain much better than any doctor's ever going to, it probably is OCD. You know, it's probably different in other countries as well, but for me, it's very much a case of, I used to blindly trust doctors. I used to be like, yeah, you've gone to med school, you've completed your exams, you're a doctor, you must know what you're doing. And they don't. I'm sorry. I'm sure lots of them are fantastic, but I personally switched GP surgeries this year because the other one misdiagnosed my mum with a UTI when she actually had cancer. So I don't trust GPs that much anymore. I don't trust medical professionals that much anymore. What I do trust is me knowing myself to enough of a degree to be able to Google things and be able to look into things and be able to say, hey, all of these symptoms, all of these traits, all of these whatever, line up with the things I've been complaining about. The things that I'm saying, hey, this is a bit weird. The things where I'm going, God, other people actually don't think like that or don't do this or don't have to say this. You know, when it all adds up, it's very like, wait a fucking minute. And with the way that the NHS is, I'm sorry, but those doctors, even if you have the best GP in the whole of the country, they're not being given the time or the pay or the funding or whatever else to actually do the deep dive and figure out what's going on with you. Like, the surgery that I go to has like a mental health specific GP that I occasionally get to see, and that's a longer appointment time. I think it's 45 minutes or an hour instead of like the usual 20 minutes or half an hour. And even then, if you're someone like me that has like a history of mental health stuff dating all the way back to when I was 12 years old, you don't even get through the half of it before the time's up, you know? Like, I'm currently on meds yet again that I really don't like, to be honest with you, because all too often when I go and describe what's going on, they'd much rather just slam me onto an antidepressant than actually try and figure out what's happening in my brain. You know, like, quite frankly, at 12 years old when I was taken into my doctors by my parents because they were like, she's depressed and anxious, I really think that my autism should have been picked up on then. But it wasn't, because doctors aren't always great at their jobs. And especially when it's things that we learn to mask and hide and things that, you know, personally, as much as I don't want to be and don't think we need to be, I'm very ashamed of my mental health and the way that it represents itself sometimes, the way that it, you know, is seen. You know, when I'm really depressed and anxious and going through a time, I am still going to force myself up and shower before I go to the doctors and make sure that I look like some sort of a functioning human being, because I'm going out into the world. And I'm going to feel much, much worse doing that in my ratty pyjamas that I've worn for the last week, smelling like just pure BO, than if I don't. And yet I'm supposed to think that this doctor, who I'm completely masking in front of, I'm not being myself in the slightest. I'm trying my best to give honest answers, but I mostly just want to people please. That's, you know, and that's not me being like, I want to make him like me. It's me being like, I sometimes literally answer things in a way that I don't agree with because instinct takes over, and I'm scared, you know, a lot of the time. I recently got sent to be I recently had a whole assessment to see if I have psychosis, which isn't something I've ever implied or said that I think I have. So why is it so easy to get an assessment for psychosis but not OCD when I'm sitting here telling you here's all of the symptoms of OCD that I personally experience? You know, I don't trust doctors to give, or, you know, I don't trust that doctors are going to see enough of what's going on to give a referral a lot of the time, never mind actually take us seriously. You know, I think, honestly, like, in the dream world, what would happen is someone would have to follow me around for a week and, like, make notes of all the stuff I do that no one else does or that most other people don't do or that relates to a certain thing, and then tell me what the fuck's going on. But there's no time or funding to do that. So I'm expected to somehow know for myself what's different from other people, process all of that, figure out what it is, go to a doctor to ask for a referral. You know, I've not done all of that because I just want another label. I've done all of that because I'm dealing with stuff, and it'd be really nice to know how to not deal with it or how to help cope with dealing with it. And I think one thing that really upsets me is that I've seen quite a lot of autistic people specifically saying that, like, oh, there's so many women that just want an autism diagnosis these days. And, like, yeah, because we didn't get diagnosed earlier because they thought it was just men for a start. Or more specifically, let's be honest, they thought it was just little boys. If you were already a man, you probably got overlooked as well. But again, as this whole video has been about, I would absolutely vehemently argue that it's not that they want an autism diagnosis, it's not that they want an ADHD diagnosis, it's not that they want a diagnosis of this specific thing, it's that they want to know what it is that's going on. That's all most of us want, you know? We just want to know, what is it that's going on with me and how do I help it? And I know there's an argument there because there's no help for autism, there's no support. Boy, do I know that there's really not much support if you're late diagnosed. But I can support myself better if I know that I'm autistic, you know? I never would have bought myself fidget toys before because I'm not a fidgeter, duh. But I like to stim a lot, and little spinny rings and stuff. There's a lot of things that I do with my hands that I never considered as like fidgeting, because it's anxiety coping methods. It's an anxiety coping mechanism. No, it's autistic stimming. But I would never have known that had I not gone and been diagnosed as autistic. You know, like I spent years feeling terrible because every time I had a really good day out, you know, I'd gone out with friends, I'd seen such and such, I'd done this, I'd had a really good day, and I'd get home and I'd just sob. I'd be like, oh my god, I'm the biggest buzzkill in the world, I'm such a killjoy, this is why no one wants to hang out with me. And bear in mind, they're not even hanging out with me at this point. We've left, we've had a good time, they've gone home and like, we've messaged me like, yeah, home safe, it was a great time, bye. And I'm sobbing. And I just felt like the worst person in the world. I felt terrible for it, I felt so stupid. And I don't have to feel like that anymore because I can just be like, yeah, I've had a day, I've been really overwhelmed, I've had a lot of sensory stuff going on. This is just a little mini meltdown to help me re-regulate. And it makes it so much easier. And I couldn't do that without a diagnosis. You know, I think it largely just stems from this horrible thought that a lot of people are faking it. And they want the diagnosis to have the official label for this thing that they're faking. And great thing about being on new meds is that I just keep losing my train of thought. I really don't know what I was just talking about. Yeah, when people go on about how like people just want to fake autism and get the diagnosis so they've got a label and they're just faking it and they just like being known as it and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, maybe this happened one time somewhere, but it's not the prevalent situation, you know? It's not the main thing that's happening, is it? It's like, yeah, somewhere some Muslim guy did a horrible thing. Don't mean all Muslims are doing it, does it? This man dressed as a woman so that he could go into women's dressing rooms and do horrible things. Well, that's a man, isn't it? It's not a trans woman, because trans women, for the most part, don't do that. And just like every other fucking demographic, some people are assholes. Being trans or being brown or being whatever else doesn't save you from the fact that some people are twats. You know, and it's the exact same thing here. Some people are dickheads. Some people are going to fake different diagnoses. We've seen people fake cancer. We've seen people fake all sorts of stuff online in the last few years. At some point, someone has or will fake having autism or ADHD or OCD or whatever else, because that shit happens. But it's such a minority that it really doesn't fucking matter. You can't let that play into every single person that's getting a diagnosis when it's like 100,000 to 1 chance that it happens. And as I'm sure I've made clear in the video by now, or at least I hope I've made clear, we don't want the diagnosis. We want the assessment to know what's going on. And if we get the diagnosis, then we know what's going on. And if we don't, then we can look elsewhere to figure out what's going on. I'll admit some of this is a bit personal because I just really don't like the way it's been phrased to me so many times recently. So you want an ADHD diagnosis? And it's like, no, I want the assessment so I find out if I'm ADHD or not. Like, I want to know which it is. I don't just want the diagnosis. Don't just give me the certificate. I want to, like, do the test and know for sure. But for this video, I think that's all I had to say. It's kind of a lengthy video for really not that big of a topic, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions anyway. I always like getting comments. I always like reading them, and I've been replying to some a bit more often now. I hope you've noticed I do try. I post videos on Tuesdays and Fridays, and I've got a few scheduled for in between that, just for funsies, so that's nice. I also have been posting more on TikTok, so you might want to follow me there. All of my links will be down below as always. If you wanted to like and subscribe, you always can, you're always welcome. It'd be very nice to have you here. But for now, whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year, and I'll see you again in a couple of days.